What's up, guys? My name's Brandon, and welcome back to Apple Weekly. In this episode, we're going to discuss even more iOS 18 features and changes. We're going to talk about why Siri 2.0 has been delayed, a new plastic Apple Watch might be on the way, AT&T's big hack that you need to be aware of, a crazy AirTag story, and more. And if you want to stay updated with everything going on in the world of Apple, including all the new changes in iOS 18, be sure to hit that subscribe button down below. Okay, so let's start by talking about even more iOS 18 features and changes. So as you know, iOS 18 Beta 3 was released this week, earlier in the week, and we're probably not going to see Beta 4 for quite a while. We'll talk about that in a moment. We are likely not going to see that for at least a couple more weeks. But again, we'll talk about that here in a moment. But let's talk about some new changes in iOS 18 Beta 3. And the first one here is not actually something you can see on your device. You're only able to access this screen through the Xcode simulator on a Mac, but we can see that the Apple Intelligence in Siri option is shown here inside of settings, along with the Apple Intelligence logo, and it says beta. So this is what it will look like in the future. Potentially in Beta 3, Apple may, click something server side and release this to our devices, or you might be seeing this in Beta 4 and beyond. But this is something new here in Beta 3. Now also something new, and this is more of a bug in Beta 3, but we get the Genmoji UI. So I've had multiple people DM me photos very similar to this one right here, where they go into their emoji keyboard and for some reason the Genmoji UI pops up for them. Now they're not able to do anything with it, but this is a look at what the Genmoji UI could and probably will look like when it hits our devices shortly. And I've said this before, but I'll say it again. I think Genmoji is going to be a much bigger deal than people realize. This, of course, is where you can create an emoji based on what you type in. So if you type in something crazy, it's going to create an emoji to match whatever you typed in. So that's going to be pretty cool, but of course, it's not available for us to actually use yet in Beta 3. We just got a brief little look at the UI here. Okay, so now let's talk about some features that we can actually see on our device here in Beta 3. And the first thing is actually on the lock screen. So if we head to our lock screen and go to customize and then go into our lock screen and we eliminate one of these right here. So you can see also I have the dynamic wallpaper showing right here. So you can see it's changing colors on my lock screen. That was another new feature in iOS 18 Beta 3. The iOS 18 wallpaper changes colors throughout the day, which is awesome. I've been loving that. But if we tap on the plus down here, we do have a new control with iOS 18, and that is for opening Apple Music. So now we have a music option with one little option there to open music. So if you ever wanted a quick way to get to Apple Music from your lock screen, you can now just simply long press on that and it will open up Apple Music for you. And we also have quite a few changes actually in the control center that I did not talk about in my What's New video. So in my What's New video, I covered a lot of features and changes, probably more than most people realize were in iOS 18 Beta 3, but I found even more here in the control center. And some of these are pretty minor, but bear with me. First off, the TV remote icon is smaller in Beta 3 than it was in Beta 2. That remote was larger in size in Betas 1 and 2. For the personal hotspot control, we now have a different color of slash through the chains. So before it was white, now it's more of a gray. The small square HomeKit device controls are back here in Beta 3. So for whatever reason in Beta 2, we were not able to have a HomeKit device toggle as a small square. It was only available in bigger sizes, but that has returned in Beta 3. And then also if we go down to the connectivity section in our control center down here, the VPN actually works now. So in Beta 1 and Beta 2, that never worked, but now in Beta 3, if you do have a VPN on your device, it will actually work from the control center now. And then if we head into our settings and go to general and then go down to the bottom, we now have a change because shutdown is now separated from transfer or reset iPhone. Before, those two were kind of connected in their own little menu, sub-menu, but now they are separated and shutdown has its own separate section in settings in general. Also in settings, if we go into our Siri section and then down here to Siri responses, we used to have a whole section here for when you're connected to a car stereo or CarPlay, you could change where the Siri responses, where they were outputted to, but that has been removed for some reason in Beta 3. We also have a change to RCS messaging. So before in Beta 2, when it was first introduced, we just had a simple on or off toggle in the messages settings, but now in Beta 3, it's its own standalone section. So we have RCS messaging, and when you go into there, we just have a simple toggle to turn RCS on or off, along with a description right below it. In the calculator application, we have a a new rad button to the left right here. So RAD, that stands for radius. And we could also change that to temperature. So if you go to the calculator icon and go to scientific, we have a new button over here in the bottom right section right here above the divided by sign. We have degrees and radius. So we can change between those two if we would like to. And it looks like degrees just doesn't show anything, but radius does show RAD right there. And it will also show up if we go back to our basic calculator if we do have radius turned on. Also this week, we did see a new AirPods Pro 2 beta firmware update. So this is going to be build number 7A5244B. So this is going to introduce some of the new iOS 18 features that we've been talking about for a while now. So we do have quite a few changes in iOS 18 beta 3, but it's not perfect. And we do have quite a few new bugs that were just introduced with iOS 18 beta 3. So if we go to customize our home screen here, if we go to edit and then customize, a big bug that impacted a lot of people, especially right away, I had a lot of responses about this, is that this whole customized screen at the bottom just never showed up. People were not able to change their icons between light and dark mode, tinted, any of that. And we found out that the problem was if you have a straight black background. So if you had a black wallpaper, for some reason you were not able to access the customize menu. And the workaround for that was to just make a new wallpaper, a new home screen wallpaper along with the lock screen. So that's a little fix there if you were not able to pull up this section here, this customized section for the home screen. Now, of course, another big change when beta 3 is that all of our third-party applications, or most of our third-party applications, also got dark mode, which just looks amazing. Oh, and by the way, if you are somebody who uses the tinting feature, you will probably notice that that was broken in beta 3 as well. So if you go through these enough, the tinted icons actually get stuck and they get bugged out where they're tinted no matter what you change this to. I had this issue in beta 1 as well, but it looks like it did come back here in beta 3. So there are still issues with this. As expected, it is a brand new feature, so I'm not expecting Apple to have it perfect by a third beta. But if you were having issues with that, you are not alone. I've also been having this bug right here where I do not get a keyboard when I go into Spotlight search. So anytime I swipe down to go into Spotlight, it just doesn't show me a keyboard at all, and I can't type anything in. And the only way I've been able to fix that is with a reboot. And then I've also been having issues with RCS in beta 3 where it would sometimes try to send an RCS message as an iMessage, and then it would say that the message delivery has failed because it tried to send a message to an Android user as an iMessage. So that's a really weird bug that's only started happening here in beta 3, and I've seen some of you guys report that to me as well, so I know I'm not alone with that RCS bug. And then of course we do also have small UI bugs here and there, and we have sometimes applications where you open them up and the screen will be all white, so you have to force quit out of it and then go back into it until it works. So I have had issues like that with beta 3, but that's to be expected. But overall, I will say that beta 3 is by far the most stable build of iOS 18 yet. So we are still in the beta stages, the early beta stages, so it's not perfect. I don't think anybody's expecting it to be perfect. That's why I just share these bugs just to let you guys know you aren't alone. And of course, if Apple is listening, I like to, put those out there as well. So I do think iOS 18 beta 3 is by far the most stable build of iOS 18 yet, and I do think that we are ready for the public beta. So anyways, you can see what I scored here in Geekbench. So we did score a 2849 on the single core and a 7006 on the multi-core, and then I did just run a test before this as well, before this video, and I did score quite a bit lower on the multi-core, so a 6941. So still not the best scores here in terms of Geekbench. For some reason, I was scoring much higher with beta 1 and even beta 2. So actually it's mostly beta 1 down there on June 14th and June 21st. But you can see that the Geekbench scores for some reason have fallen off quite a bit, but overall performance has been fine. I mean, obviously it's been much better than it was on beta 1. Now, as far as battery life goes, battery life is still not great for me. I still have been having quite a few issues with battery life in beta 3. So unfortunately, we're still not there yet for battery life. I still think we're going to wait, probably at least a month until we have decent battery life, So it is a beta, so I'm not expecting great battery life, just like with performance. I'm not expecting it to be perfect, but battery life has just not really been very impressive for a third beta. I would usually, with these betas, we tend to see battery life really start getting decent percent around beta 5. So I would expect around beta 5 for us to have a decent battery life. So even for the first public beta, don't expect to go into that getting great battery life like you were getting on iOS 17. It's just simply not going to happen. You're still going to get pretty bad battery life until we get to probably around beta 5. Okay, so now let's talk about what to expect next from Apple. And here's where it gets a little bit tricky, because next week we should be seeing the public beta of iOS 18. So I've been saying that all along, that we are going to see the first public beta on the week of July 15th, and I would expect that to come true. Now, we could see the public beta really any day from the 15th through the 18th. Apple releases the public beta on random days. Like we've seen it on Thursdays multiple times. So really we have any time from Monday through Thursday to see iOS 18 beta 1. Now, after that, we could very well see a re-release. I do think we're going to see a re-release of iOS 18 developer beta 3, just so we have the same build number as the public beta. So that could come the same day, that could come, sometime in the same week, or that can even come the next week after the public beta. Whenever it comes, we are going to get a re-release of iOS 18 developer beta 3 to match up with the build number. Now, after we get the public beta and the re-release of developer beta 3, we're probably going to have to wait until the final week of July to get developer beta 4 and public beta 2. So most likely on the week of July 29th. Now, the reason I say that is because for the past 2 years, Apple has waited around 3 weeks in between beta 3 and beta 4. So if they do what they've done in the past 2 years, we're not going to see beta 4 until the week of July 29th. Now, of course, could we get developer beta 4 before that? Of course, Apple's unpredictable. We could even get it afterwards. We could have to wait until August. But I'm just saying that based on history, we should be seeing iOS 18 beta 4 on the week of July 29th. It will most likely be on either the 29th or on the 30th. And then after that, we should go back to a 2-week release schedule. But of course, we'll talk about that when the time comes in August. And then we could expect to see the final release of iOS 18 in mid-September, probably the week of September 16th. But of course, we'll have to wait and see on that. All right, so now let's move on to the latest Apple news. And let's start with the big AT&T hack that just got disclosed on Friday. So if you have AT&T, your phone records might be in the hands of hackers, because these hackers were able to infiltrate Snowflake, which is a cloud platform used by AT&T, to steal phone records and texts of, quote, nearly all AT&T customers. Now, this big breach took place in 2022, and a smaller scale breach took place in January of 2023. Now, the stolen data includes which phone numbers customers interacted with, how many times they were called or texted, and total call durations for specific days or months. Now, if there is any good news, AT&T did confirm that the hacked data does not include any personal info like your social security number, your birth date, nor the content of any calls or texts. And AT&T does not believe that the data is publicly available, at least not yet, but it could come out in the future. Now, if you were hoping to see the new Siri 2.0 in the next beta of iOS 18, I have bad news for you. Unfortunately, we're gonna have to wait until next year, next spring at that, to see Siri 2.0. And this news comes from Mark Gurman, because he says that the revamped version of Siri is set to be released in iOS 18.4, a software update coming around spring 2025. But if you're a beta tester, you will be able to test it out starting in January. However, he does say that the new Siri UI and the ChatGPT integration will be coming later this year. And of course, we are still expecting Genmoji, the AI writing tools, the changes in Mail, and all the other AI changes to come later this year as well. It's just the new Siri 2.0 that is going to be delayed. Now, this should not really come as a big surprise, because Apple said all along that, some of these features are going to come out over the next year. And I think that Siri 2.0 was the most obvious contender, the most obvious, feature that was going to end up being delayed, because it is the hardest to get right. And it is going to be the biggest change to the iPhone or iOS in a very long time. So yeah, we're going to have to wait for a while to see the new Siri, but we are at least going to be able to access the new Siri UI. And I think this is also good, because a lot more people are going to be able to use Siri 2.0 by the time it gets released, because the iPhone 16 will have already been released. And a lot of those people with the base model, even iPhone 16, will be able to take advantage of the new Siri when it does eventually launch in the spring. And speaking of the iPhone 16, we have some new leaks about the iPhone 16 Pro because we're now hearing that it might have improved charging speeds. So according to IT Home, iPhone 16 Pro is going to support 20-watt wireless MagSafe charging and 40 watts when wired. Now, for reference, the current max speeds are 15 watts for wireless charging and only 27 watts for wired charging. So this is going to be a noticeable difference. However, this report does also mention that the increase in charging speeds will be offset by the iPhone 16 Pro models having larger batteries than the iPhone 15s. So I was really excited for the 40 watt wired charging because if you guys saw my charge test for the iPhone 15 series, we concluded in that video that 27 watts was pretty much the max that you can charge your phone at. So I was really excited to see 40 watts potentially coming to this year's iPhones, but it looks like it might be offset because of the bigger batteries inside. But of course, I will be doing that charge test, so we're gonna have to wait and see if it is actually better in terms of charging speeds. And then moving on to next year's iPhone 17 Pro Max, that's gonna be the first model to feature 3 48 megapixel cameras. So this comes according to Ming-Chi Kuo, and he said that next year's iPhone 17 Pro Max will feature an upgraded 48 megapixel tetraprism camera, which will enhance photo quality and zoom functionality. It's currently uncertain whether only the iPhone 17 Pro Max will feature the upgraded tetraprism camera. If so, the iPhone 18 Pro will also feature the upgraded tetraprism camera, and also both the 16 Pro and 16 Pro Max will get the tetraprism telephoto lenses this year. It's not just going to be for the Pro Max. So as you guys know, with the iPhone 15 Pro Max, that was the only one with the 5x tetraprism, telephoto camera, but now it looks like the Pro and the Pro Max this year will be getting that new camera system. Now let's shift over to Apple Watch because we heard some really interesting news about a cheaper Apple Watch that could be coming sooner rather than later. So this comes from Mark Gurman, and he says that Apple is working on a new low-cost Apple Watch SE that will be made of a plastic casing. He says one idea that the company has tested is swapping out the aluminum shell in favor of rigid plastic. Perhaps it's looking to get the cost down to something that could better rival Samsung's cheapest watch, the $199 Galaxy Watch FE. So I'm really curious to know if you guys would actually like a plastic Apple Watch. Like, to me, I don't like the feeling of plastic, especially when it's on my body at all times. But what do you think about if it's like maybe a $200 Apple Watch SE? Is that something that you're interested in? Do you think that's something that you would actually buy, or is that more for a kid? Let me know your thoughts in the comments because I'm really curious to see what you think about a plastic Apple Watch. Now, as far as the Apple Watch Series 10 that's coming later this year, that's going to have a larger display and a new chip, but the new health monitoring features have hit a snag. Gurman says Apple has been developing technology to detect high blood pressure and sleep apnea that were slated for release later this year, but the effort has not gone smoothly. Since making headway on those features last year, Apple has run into some serious snags. He also goes on to say that the new chip, quote, could lay the groundwork for some AI enhancements down the road, but it will not run Apple Intelligence. So it looks like the Series 10 might be another dud of an Apple Watch upgrade, just like last year and the year before and the year before and the year before. So I don't know. I'm ready for some type of big change to the Apple Watch because it seems like a really pointless update for most people. You may as well just get the Ultra because that's really the only thing that's different since like the Apple Watch Series 8. So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see, but hopefully we see something more than just a new chip and a bigger display and a thinner body. And then finally, just as tradition, let's talk about another crazy AirTag story. So this time, a man named Zach in Singapore decided to go out shopping at a mall and had his car valeted. When he finished shopping, he gave his ticket to valet, who had his keys, but not his car. That's right. Somebody stole this man's Honda HR-V in broad daylight at a mall without even having the key. Now, after realizing that somebody stole his car, Zach went to the police and Facebook to let them know what happened. He also stated that there was a GPS tracker inside of the car. Now, he smartly said GPS tracker because he did not want the thief to see his Facebook post, otherwise he'd find it and throw it out. So while Zach was filing a police report, he had his friends go and track down the car using that AirTag in the Find My app, and they located the car at a private residence about 17 miles away, and then they contacted police. police. And the police moved quickly and arrived on scene within 10 minutes of the call and arrested the thief. And what's interesting is that the shopping mall staff issued a notice claiming that they had launched a comprehensive investigation and that their CCTV footage is what helped arrest the thief. But Zach knows, and he said this in the Facebook post, that the mall staff played very little in the recovery and that the AirTag was the real hero and the real reason that the thief was caught. So that is a new one. I've never heard of somebody having their car stolen at a valet without the key, without having the key, but an AirTag saved the day. So just another reason to have an AirTag in your car at all times. And this is a reminder to double check the battery life of your AirTag as well. It can be kind of sneaky sometimes when they die. So you definitely want to make sure to have your batteries charged up in all your AirTags. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. As always, if you did, I would appreciate if you gave it a thumbs up, and I'll see you next week.